got a lot of feelings. Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I am doing my very, very long overdue Queen of Shadows discussion. So I just finished Queen of Shadows as of about 30 minutes ago, and I finally just got home and I set up my camera right away and decided that I need to film right now because I have so many thoughts about this book and so many feelings and so many things I just want to talk about and discuss, and that's what I'm gonna do today. Queen of Shadows is the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series, so if you guys have not read the series, you should not watch this video because there are going to be spoilers galore. I honestly cannot do a review of this book without spoiling the rest of the series, so this video is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. So for those of you who have not read the series, please do not watch this video if you don't want to be spoiled for the Throne of Glass series because, like I said, this video is just gonna be spoilers and spoilers and spoilers and spoilers. So I highly recommend that if you haven't read it, you click away now. Alright, so if you're still here, I'm assuming you have already read the Throne of Glass series and you've already read Queen of Shadows. So let's get on to discussing this book. So up front, as a disclaimer before we get into this video, I may have some opinions on this book that you may not share, and that is totally okay. If I talk about some things that I don't like, or some characters, or some ships that I am not fond of, and you are fond of, that is okay. I do not mean to offend you. I don't mean that you're wrong if you like them, by any means at all. It just means that we have different opinions, and I just wanted to put that up front because I want to be able to discuss this book honestly, 100% my honest opinions, and I don't want to feel like I have to be soft on something just for the sake of having an unpopular opinion about it. That's why I'm here, because I want to be able to discuss my true feelings about things, and I'm pretty sure that's why all of you guys are here, because you want to be able to discuss your honest opinions. So putting that out there, I may have some unpopular opinions in this video, but I want to be totally honest about them, and I don't want to try and disguise anything that I'm feeling. Alright, now that that is all out of the way, let us dive into this discussion of Queen of Shadows. I've decided that I'm kind of going to structure it by talking about each character individually and my opinions on them and their growth or change throughout the book series and this book specifically, and just how they interacted with other characters, because the characters are where a lot of my problems with this book lie. But they're also some of my favorite parts of this book. And that is just the perfect place to start with this discussion because that's exactly how I feel. I'm so conflicted and so torn about how I feel about this book. I'm gonna put this down now because it's huge and really heavy and I don't want to hold it up for the whole video. So first I'm gonna start off by talking about Celaena / Aelin and each of them individually, I guess, because let's be honest, Celaena and Aelin are two completely different people. So before I even get to this, I feel like I should give you guys a bit of background of how I felt about Celaena in the previous 3 books. In Throne of Glass, I actually really enjoyed Celaena's character. I thought she was really cool and I thought she was really badass and she had the potential to be an amazing character in my opinion. Then came along Crown of Midnight and I loved her even more, and I just thought she grew so much in that book and she just came into her own and I absolutely loved her. Then there was Heir of Fire and everything happened with Chaol and Celaena and she went off to Wendlin and we find out about her being Aelin and she kind of starts to realize who she's supposed to be. She kind of starts to accept that and accepts her role as the Queen of Terrasen. And I was completely okay with that. And I understood why her character had to change in the ways that she did, and it made logical sense to me. But then we get to Crown of Midnight, and I just couldn't understand this complete and utter change. She fully accepts her role as Aelin, and now she wants to go by Aelin and she wants nothing to do with Celaena Sardathian anymore, which at first I kind of understood because it's like, yes, that is her true identity. She is Aelin Galathinius, she is the Queen of Terrasen, and she should take on that role. It's her responsibility as queen. But my problem was that she completely ignored the fact that she was ever Celaena Sardathian. It was like she hated Celaena Sardathian, and I kind of understood that because it was like a persona. It wasn't really her. It was her in her eyes and in, I guess, Nehemia's eyes when she says that being a coward. But she went through so much of her life as Celaena Sardathian. She trained to become an assassin as Celaena Sardathian. Celaena Sardathian is so much a part of who Aelin Galathinius is. And I just don't understand why she suddenly hated Celaena so strongly. It was almost like nothing that Celaena Sardathian went through and nothing that she experienced even mattered anymore. It was as if all of her relationships, all of the training she went through, everything she suffered, everything she went through just didn't matter anymore because Celaena Sardathian was dead to her and she was a coward and Aelin Galathinius had risen and taken the throne. Celaena is part of who she is. She can't just ignore that. Her relationship with Chaol, her relationship with Dorian, being enslaved in Endovir and imprisoned, everything that she went through with Erebin made her character. It was part of her character, and it's still part of her character. It has to be. It's not like she can erase that. And I just don't understand why she wanted to disassociate herself so completely with Celaena Sardathian and her past. Like, I understand that she needs to move forward, she needs to grow, but ignoring everything that happened to you in the past is not character growth. In my opinion, actually, it's kind of a regression. And so to be quite honest, I ended up really hating Aelin's character in this book. And I know that's kind of a strong word, but that's really how I felt. I didn't like her at all. And honestly, my biggest problem with Aelin's character is how often she lies to everyone, including the reader. And I understand that Sarah J. Maas probably adds that in there, like the little secrets, the things that Aelin does without telling anyone about them that you later find out, oh, she did this, so now they can do that. Yeah, it's supposed to build up suspense. Yeah, it's supposed to have like a shock effect or something like that. But honestly, it's just really, really annoying and frustrating, and it makes her so unreliable. I honestly don't know if I can even trust her character ever. I never know if she's telling the truth. I never know if what she says is reliable in any sense. How are we supposed to trust a character that is constantly lying to us and is constantly lying to everyone around her? She's supposedly in love with Rowan, and she was before, at least, in love with Chaol, yet she lies to them all the time. She lied to Aedion when Aedion was like, yeah, well, I'll take the blood oath and then we can finally rebuild our kingdom. And she was like, yeah, sure. Where the entire time she knows that Rowan has already taken the blood oath and she's just straight up lying to him. And you know what, that would be all right if she didn't get so offended when people lie to her. When she finds out that Olenna has been lying to her and that the king is actually alive all this time, she's so appalled and she is so offended. And I just don't understand, how on earth can you be so upset that people lie to you when all you do is lie to everyone around you? And I know, I'm sorry, I'm getting really worked up about this, but I'm so passionate about this because it frustrated me to no end. I don't understand how you could expect us to like or trust the protagonist when all she does is lie to us and to everyone in the book. Also, I just felt like a lot of the time she wasn't focused on the task at hand. It was just really frustrating because it was like, you are at war. The king is conquering people, he's building up armies, he's banned magic, he's captured it, he's using it for his own gain, for his own protection, he has imprisoned his own son, the prince, and what you're worried about is whether or not Rowan likes you back? And that brings us into my whole discussion on the relationship between Rowan and Aelin. So backing up a bit, in Heir of Fire, I loved their relationship, platonically. I was totally for them being best bros, for them being partners, for them going through this together, for them having each other in a time when they both needed someone to lean on. I loved their friendship. And this brings me to a point that I talked about in my unpopular opinions tag, when I talked about one of my least favorite book tropes, and that is when every single interaction a female character has with a male character, it automatically has to be a romantic one. I just don't understand why we can't have a platonic relationship between a male character and a female character. I just don't get it. Throne of Glass, it had to be her and Dorian. Crown of Midnight, it had to be her and Chaol. Heir of Fire, it was fine because things were all platonic and everything was great and I thought it was headed in a wonderful direction. Then we get to Queen of Shadows and of course, what happens? It has to be romantic now. Suddenly, Rowan and Celaena, or Aelin, have secretly been in love with each other this entire time and none of us knew about it. And I know, a lot of people ship Rowan and Aelin, and I understand. If that's your ship, that's your ship. I totally understand. But for me, it progressed way too quickly. And honestly, it was just kind of almost exactly like the same relationship that her and Chaol had. Which, again, backing up here, I, in the first 2 books, hardcore shipped Chaol and Celaena. I know that's not a popular ship, I know I am in the minority in this, but just stick with me. I totally ship them. I love them because Chaol is my favorite character. And I'd totally be for her getting over Chaol and moving on to someone else if it wasn't so forced. And that was honestly my biggest problem with her relationship with Rowan. It honestly felt like it was being shoved down my throat. There were just so many unnecessary references to the 2 of them staring at each other or touching each other or just being romantic in some sort of way in times of crisis. Like the scene where Evangeline breaks into the apartment because Lysandra has been taken by the king's men because they found out about the fact that she's a shapeshifter and she's freaking out and she's having a panic attack and she's crying because she's a little girl. And I just don't understand why, when you are in a time of crisis, you would take the time to explain that when Aelin put her hand on Rowan's shoulder, she felt his warm, soft skin underneath her calloused fingers. How is that relevant? And to be 100% honest, I just hated it. I completely hated it. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't relevant to what was going on, and it was being forced down our throats. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to hate on anyone. I totally understand that some people ship the 2 of them. I'm just not one of these people, and it was just really frustrating to me to have to read through these unnecessary lines at really inconvenient times. Like, this is not a time that you should be discussing how soft and warm his skin is. It's a time where you should be taking care of this kid because she's freaking out, and you should be saving your friend because she's been kidnapped. Also, I just don't get why every single male character in this series is obsessed with Aelin. Like, I get it. She's cool, she was an assassin, she's the queen, but she's not that great. Every single guy who comes into contact with her shouldn't be fawning over her. It's all of them. It's Rowan, it's Chaol, it's Dorian, it's Aedion. Literally, all of them are obsessed with her, and I can't wrap my head around it. Seriously, I have no chill in this video. It's just all raw emotion right now. And just let me know in the comments down below if I'm just completely off with this or if any of you guys agree with me, because I feel like I cannot be the only one who felt that her character changed just too drastically and that it just didn't make logical sense anymore. I guess that's pretty much what I had to say on Aelin's character. But yeah, just overall with her character, I did a 180 because I loved her in the first 2 books and even in the 3rd one. And in this one, I just cannot stand her character in the slightest. Alright, so now I'm gonna move on to Rowan's character. In Heir of Fire, I really wasn't his biggest fan, especially in the beginning. I didn't like him at all. I felt like he was an exaggerated stereotype of the brooding bad boy character, and that he was just like a hotter fae version of Chaol, except more dull. And again, I know, I'm sorry if you really like Rowan, I just have to get my feelings out there. But as Heir of Fire progressed, I started to like him a bit more, and I really liked his relationship with Aelin in Heir of Fire. I thought that their relationship was really great and that they were really supportive of each other, but I wanted it to stay that way. I wanted it to stay platonic. And of course that didn't happen in this book. And it's not really that I'm upset that my ship isn't the one that is currently canon. It's just that I wish that this friendship that started out so beautifully could have just stayed a friendship. Because we do not need every single interaction she has with a male character to be a romantic interaction. But then we get into Queen of Shadows, and once he finally comes in, I just honestly didn't care. It felt like Rowan was there just to be Aelin's love interest in this book. Like, it was kind of like the reverse of what you see in a lot of YA books, where it's like a female character is just introduced to be the love interest for the male character. It was the reverse of that, where it was like Rowan was just there to be Aelin's love interest. And it's sexist either way. and completely pointless. And I feel like his character shouldn't be there unless he has some other purpose other than just being a love interest, because that's not a purpose. That's just pointless. Also, I just felt like he got too protective of her. The relationship started to feel Twilighty to me, especially in the scene where they were like starting to kind of like make out, even though no kissing actually happened, after Lorcan had like cut her neck and then she let him bite her neck. Is it just me, or did anyone else feel like that was like the ending scene in Twilight? Because that is what that felt like, and it was really weird, and I didn't find it romantic or sexy in any sort of way. I was just really put off by it, and I didn't care. Like I said, it was just annoying. It was just an annoyance. I just felt like there were so many more pressing issues going on, and their relationship was so irrelevant to the rest of the story that it didn't need to be there. It was just distracting from the main plot. That's pretty much all I have to say on Rowan, because like, quite honestly, I find him to be extremely dull, and he doesn't serve a purpose. At least he didn't in this book, and I found that really, really frustrating. I feel like he has the potential to be pretty cool, but he just didn't live up to that in this book. So now I'm gonna get into Aedion, who I really do not have much to say about Aedion, because again, I felt like he didn't really serve a purpose. He was just kind of there to be like, yes, I also love Aelin, which we get it, everyone loves Aelin. It was just so frustrating to me, and I felt like he was just being used by Aelin in a way as just support, because he was kind of like the sidekick who was there. I felt like that was perfectly exemplified in the scene at the very end of the book when Aelin and Rowan are making out in her bedroom in the castle, and Aedion goes to like say something to her. So he opens the door and sees them in there, and then they just shut the door on him. Like, I feel like that scene right there is exactly how Aedion's character was treated in the entire book. All right, so now we get into Chaol. And Chaol. In the first 3 books, Chaol is my favorite character. Hands down, love him. Again, I know that's not a very popular opinion. I know a lot of people don't like Chaol very much. But like I said, I loved him at the beginning of the series. I absolutely love his character. I thought he was so interesting and so complex and so conflicted, because he was raised to believe that what he was doing was right, that he was the protector, that he was meant to fight for the king because this was all he had ever known. And then Celaena comes into his life and she changes that. She changes him. But after all of that happens, after he sends her off to Wendlin for her own sake, she comes back. And then the two of them just argue. 2/3 of this book was Chaol and Aelin arguing. It was like suddenly they hated each other. And I just didn't get it, because at the end of Crown of Midnight, which was the last time the two of them had spoken, they were on okay terms. Celaena straight up says to him that she would always choose him, or she'd always pick him. And then she comes back and she's like, LOL, JK, I hate you now. That made no sense to me. Like, I'm not saying that they still had to be in love with each other, because I understand people move on, they don't work, especially after something like as traumatic as death happens. But this was something else. And the first 2/3 of this book were just so difficult for me to read, because I hated reading the scenes where Chaol and Celaena, or Aelin, were just constantly arguing. And that was all they would do. I was like, there are more pressing issues than the two of you just constantly bickering about the fact that you hate each other. Just get over it. Just sit down, have a conversation, and discuss your issues, and then move on and try and save Dorian, because honestly, at that point, he was all that I cared about. And I just felt like Chaol's character was completely and utterly destroyed in these last 2 books. I felt like he was just being used again this entire time. Aelin just literally used him for her own benefit to further her goal of trying to kill the king and trying to rescue Aedion and save Dorian and all of this. I just felt so bad and so sad for him, because he completely and utterly gave up everything that he believed, and he became a rebel fighting against the people who were the people that he was fighting for. And he gave up all of that because he understood that what he was doing was wrong, that who he was fighting for was in the wrong. But Aelin still antagonized him. Almost everyone still antagonized him. They always brought up the fact that, oh, you worked for the king, oh, you were the captain of the guard. Well, it's like, give the guy a break, let him learn from his mistakes. And then we get into the end of the book, which of course, Sarah J. Maas has to pull a Suzanne Collins, and it's like Peeta Mellark all over again, and he is now paralyzed. And I just don't understand. He went through so much shit in this book, and in Heir of Fire, and in Crown of Midnight, and in Throne of Glass, and now you're just gonna paralyze him. I feel like Chaol got the short end of the stick in every single book, and it just wasn't fair to him, because I feel like his character was just being antagonized, and I felt like his character was just being destroyed for the sake of putting in other characters like Rowan and Aedion as like the Fae version of Chaol. And then there was his whole relationship with Nesrin, which didn't really bother me. It was just that there was nothing really there, and it just felt like a rebound to me, and I felt like that wasn't fair to Nesrin, because I liked Nesrin's character, but again, you just don't really get much from her, because she wasn't really well developed, and you just don't know that much about her, which means she could be developed in the other books. But I just didn't really care. I didn't hate the ship, I just didn't really support it either. I just didn't care. I just wanted Chaol to be happy. And then we have Dorian, who every single time I came across a Dorian chapter, which there were like 4 of them, by the way, before he actually even spoke a word, I was just so sad, because I felt so bad for Dorian being trapped inside his own body with this demon possessing him, and it was just awful and so heartbreaking to read, because I love him. I love Dorian, and I honestly just wanted to skip over the chapters with Aelin and just read about Dorian, because I cared so much more about him than what was going on with Aelin. And then finally, by the end, when Dorian frees himself from the collar, and then he kills his father, and he finally becomes the king of Aderlin, that was when I finally felt like the book was headed towards where it used to be. And I'm not saying that change isn't good, that I'm not happy that the book is progressing or going in a different direction, because I overall do like the direction that the storyline is headed with the magic and everything, but I felt like bringing Dorian back kind of grounded that a little bit back to the way that things kind of were, at least the way the dynamics were between the characters. Dorian kind of brought that back a little bit for me, so I really appreciated that. And then of course, we have the chapters with Manon. So in Heir of Fire, honestly, I did not like the chapters with Manon. I thought that they were really boring, and I honestly wanted to skip over some of them sometimes. But in this book, I absolutely loved her. I did not care about what was going on with Aelin, if I'm being honest, almost at all. I never cared unless Dorian was involved or Chaol was involved. And I just wanted to read more about Manon, and the Wyverns, and Abraxos, and Alid, or I don't know how to say her name exactly, and Astrin, and just all of them, because they were so great. The Blackbeak clan, the 13, are amazing, and I love them, and I think they're so cool, and they are, quite honestly, the one thing that really kept me reading in this book, because I loved those chapters. I think there's so much potential for that storyline to progress and grow and become something just wonderful, and I loved it. I loved the Manon chapters. I thought that stuff was just grade A+, loved it, so interesting. And Manon, I loved her character growth. She was honestly the one character where we saw true and pure character growth. Going from believing that she was born evil to understanding that she was made to be evil. And I ate that up. I adored it. She was fantastic. Just watching her grow and come into her own and start to understand that she wasn't truly evil, that she could love, and she's not quite there yet, but especially when she says to Astrid, what does it feel like? What does love feel like? Oh, that just gave me chills, and I loved reading about that, and I cannot wait to see where her character goes in future books, because I love her. I love her so much. And then of course there's her like little romance possibility with Dorian, which, okay, I both like and dislike. I like it because I think the two of them would be great together, also because they're two of the only characters that I really actually like anymore, and I feel like they could be really awesome together. But at the same time, I don't want Manon to be reduced to a love interest, because I love her character so much, and I feel like she could do so much and she could go through so much without having to be a love interest. But that said, I feel like her going through a romantic relationship could also help her to grow and learn to love, like she was talking to Astrid about. So I don't really have a solid opinion on that. We'll see where it goes and we'll see if I like it. But I think that definitely does have some potential. And then, of course, we have the introduction of Lysandra, who I loved. She was badass. She was awesome, and I totally loved and respected her. And the fact that she was a shapeshifter was awesome, and she was so cool, and just, I loved her, and I thought she was fabulous. And she was also one of the only other redeeming parts of this book for me, because, like I said 1,000 times in this video, I literally didn't care about Aelin, and I only cared about Chaol, Dorian, Manon, and Lysandra, because they were what drove this story for me. They were what made it worth reading. Also, I've noticed this trend in Maas's books where it's like 70% of the book, there's almost no action. It's just a lot of descriptions and unnecessary romantic interactions. And then it's like the last 150 pages or so is just jam-packed with action and everything just happens, and you could have literally skipped over the rest of it and just read those last 150 pages and gotten what you needed to get out of the book. Like the last 150 pages when the battle happened, when everything was going down, that was the interesting part of this book, whereas the rest of it I honestly could have probably skipped and it would have been fine. I'm like seriously losing my voice. I've been talking for an hour straight. So overall, I rated this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And I know I was really harsh on it in this discussion, but quite honestly, I can't say that I didn't enjoy reading this book, because there were some parts of it, the Manon chapters specifically, that I really, really did enjoy and that make me want to read the rest of the series. But there were also some parts of this book that really, really turned me off and bothered me, and clearly I had a lot of problems with some of it. But that being said, I still do enjoy this series because, like I said, I loved the first 2 books, especially the second one, and I'm still dedicated to it. I still want to know where the series is going to go. I'm still going to read the next 2 books. I'm just hoping that they exceed this one, because this one did not live up to my expectations. I was disappointed by it, but like I said, I can't say that I didn't enjoy reading it, because I definitely did at some parts. It clearly made me passionate and it clearly made me feel a lot of things, and I really feel like you can't ask for much more from a book. A book should make you feel, and it made me feel, and that's for sure. So it did part of its job, and for that I commend it. I think that pretty much covers everything I was feeling about this book. I know I probably left something out, so let me know in the comments down below if you agree with anything that I said in this video, if you have any of the same opinions, or if you have different opinions. Definitely leave them in the comments down below so we can discuss, because that is the fun part of this. But again, please, please keep it nice, keep it civil. If you have a different opinion than someone, please don't be hateful about it in any sort of way. Just be honest and be considerate, and we can all have a great time. So thank you guys so much for watching this very long rambly video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! This is like a little coin purse, and it has the Mad Hatter on the front, and on the back it has a quote. It says, "We're all mad here," from Alice in Wonderland. I love this.